Before the children start here with us, we've got a really robust transition plan in place. We're all about making those genuine, authentic relationships with families and easing that transition from home to school as much as we possibly can. So in the summer term, we invite the children into the setting so they get to see the enabling environment and the enabling adults, and they get a little bit of a feel of the setting before they actually start. And we get that first interaction with not only the children, but their parents. And then in the autumn term, when they do start, the first couple of weeks are taken up by home visits. So we go into the children's home, so we get a real feel of the whole child. So it's not just about the child, it's about their family dynamic, their cultural backgrounds, their faiths, their home language. So we do an all about me card where we ask lots and lots of questions to really get to know the child and their family to ease that transition. When they do start, then we will stagger that intake, so we haven't got lots of children starting at the same time, so that we can really focus on building those relationships and settling them as best we can in the setting. And if they are a little bit upset, we might, we've got 2.5 hour sessions, and if they're quite teary, that's really challenging for some children and very upsetting for parents to leave them as well. They're leaving their most prized person with us, and we have to respect that is difficult for them as well in that transition. So we would stagger it. So if they're a little bit upset, they might do about half an hour and then build them up to that full session, so that we've always got that open and honest dialogue and communication with the family, so that they feel trusted and safe and secure. Community for us is our biggest blessing. We're very fortunate. We've got a diverse community here in Grangetown, and we celebrate, respect and honour that in its full authentic nature. So when we start the children, when we ask around the family's faith, culture, religion, and we ask about home language, we really take note of that, and we ensure that when the children start, they're being represented within the setting. So we have items in the domestic role play area that would represent what they have in their home. When we're cooking with the children, it's authentic food literacy, and they're cooking things from their cultures, and we've got food that is familiar to them. So that sense of belonging is really strengthened. And I think if you don't have a diverse background, I think you need to really get to know the whole child and make sure that you are embracing every individual needs and every individual person within your school community. And it is just about valuing, respecting and honouring every single member and including them in everything, so that they become very, very valued members of the team. So it's really important to us that our environment reflects the families that come through the door. And so in our domestic role play, we have items that are representative of family homes. And we make that, essential, especially when they're transitioning from home to school. They want to see what is important to them and what they value and honour within the setting to make them feel safe and secure. Within our library and our home learning, sort of lending library, we ensure that we've got books that are a multitude of languages, so that we can have that opportunity to not only learn those languages, but also for families to share those stories at home. And again, they're seeing books that they have at home being represented in the environment. We celebrate our festivals and celebrations, and we make a real effort to involve the community in that. So throughout the year, when we have Diwali and we have Eid and we have Chinese New Year, we make sure that every single family that has a festival or a celebration or a faith service that is important to them, that we honour that as well. And we invite parents in so that we all celebrate together and that we learn about one another's cultures. And that's the most important thing, because we're all living in a diverse world, and everywhere you go, you're going to meet different people, and you have to honour and respect that, and they have to feel a part of our school community. And that's really important, that we have that whole school approach, and that the community has strong links with us. We go out and about in the locality as well, so we make sure that we visit. We've been to mosques, we've been to local shops, we've been to the Channel View Leisure Centre, we go down to the Grange Pavilion, down to Cardiff Bay. We take the children on the buses or the boats that come over from the bay over to the barrage. We really make sure that they know where they live and what's important to us as a community and here in Grangetown. I think it's really important to make sure that it is done in an authentic way and it's not done, I suppose, sort of tokenistic. It's not just ticking a box. If you're going to do it, you have to value the experience behind it and why you're doing it, and you're giving the right messages. It's not just looking at a calendar and saying, oh, we've got to do it, and it's done in a day or in an hour, just to tick a box and say that it's been taken place. Use it as a context for learning, get the children involved, get them to learn about that particular festival or celebration. We're in a digital world. Children can look on iPads, they can look in books, they can research, they can go out and about in the locality and see if they can see signs of things that they can bring back and research and make sure that it's a learning experience that is valuable and it's not just done just for the sake of doing it. So one of the things that we've done in the last year or so is embrace everything around food. Food brings people together, doesn't it? And, all the team here love an opportunity to get together around a table and experience some food. So we had our first International Food Festival last year. And like I say, we're really fortunate that we've got a really diverse community and that needs to be celebrated. So we offered parents to bring dishes that were important to them, that were home cooked comfort foods and things that they have in their home all the time. And when they brought the dishes in, we had it all set up as a little bit like a food festival, like the Depot or something like that, the Tiger Bay. And each parent who brought something in had a list of the ingredients, they had the name of the dish, they had the country of origin, and they were serving their food and talking about why it was important to them and why might they have it and how often and things like that. And it really brought all of the families together because we walked around and we were sharing one another's special dishes and we talked about why and they were saying, oh, come and try this. This is what we have, come and have a little taste of this. This is how I've made it. And they were sharing and swapping recipes. And that's what it's about for us, is that bringing everybody together and really honouring and respecting who we have through our doors on a daily basis. Obviously, a lot of our children come to school with either very limited English or they're new to English. So a few words and maybe understand but can't communicate fully in English yet. And what we do for encouraging children to communicate is that we really immerse them in a language-rich environment. So we will model language, we will narrate everything that we do. So social interaction. So we might have a group of children who are cooking. Some may be very competent in English, others may be non-verbal altogether, or others may only understand one or two phrases that they might say. But whilst we're engaged as adults, we're constantly narrating what we're doing. So we're giving them that language so they're hearing it all of the time so that they will slowly absorb that and start using it and communicating it and using it effectively. We've got quite a few members of staff who speak some of the community languages, which help, so that when they first start with us, we are using community language to make them feel safe and secure. We're using key phrases as well as other members of staff. So when we go on home visits, things like toileting can obviously be quite challenging for parents to sort of say, oh, well, at home we do this, or we might not we might not use toilet paper and we might wash and things like that. Those things are really important for us to know, and they might use a particular word that isn't something that we would be familiar with. So we ask all of those questions so that when the children are communicating, we've picked up on that word and said, right, it's toilet, that's what they mean, so that we can take them and they can communicate as effectively as they can. And we just continually encourage that and model it. And again, when we're interacting with others, we might ask another child to translate or to help another child, and we use children, families and staff to support that and visual representations, objects of reference. We do have children who are non-verbal altogether, so staff have visuals like traffic lights, and they have objects of reference. So if children want to access outdoor provision, we might show them something related to that, or their coats. So they might not understand the word, but that object is associated with that particular learning experience. So we're constantly encouraging, constantly narrating, and just immersing them in a really language-rich environment. So if parents' languages are limited, so obviously when they first start with this, we're asking some really important questions around the family and sort of contact details and things like that. Sometimes if the parents don't have a lot of English, and we can't utilise some of our staff in that moment, we do use translation services as well. And if we haven't got a translator, I think it's called WITS. WITS is the company that we use, and sometimes they're not always available, so that's a sort of hurdle for us. But Google Translate, as silly as that sounds, we've got those apps now, so parents often use those. Or they might type something to an older sibling or another member and get them to translate it, so they show that, or they'll bring a member of their family along. We might use another parent, as long as they're comfortable with that, to help us translate. So as much as we can, we try and break down those barriers so that the parents are able to communicate in their most authentic way. So when we take the children out in the locality, when parents first start here with the children, we get a consent straight away, because more often than not, our walks in the locality or our little trips will happen in the moment when children's fascinations might take them down a particular learning experience. So in that initial meeting, we get parents to sign a consent to say whether they're happy for children to go out and about, because we don't always plan them. We do have specific times of year where we have planned visitors and we have planned excursions, but a lot of the time children just do that as and when, and we're really fortunate to have quite a lot of things on our doorstep. So parents sign those consents so that in the moment we can take them, so we're not hindering or stopping that organic flow of learning at all. So in terms of sort of last week, children in the loose parts and block play area, they were looking at different homes. Obviously, lots of people live in different types of flats, apartments, homes, and things like that. And they were looking on the iPads and in books about different types of buildings and homes. But the member of staff then took that group of children to have a little walk in the area with the iPads. They took photographs of the buildings that they saw, brought those back, and then were representing those within their constructions. And it's things like that we do on a daily basis, or as much as we can, so they get to know what's in their area, and they become part of the community. They're seen out and about, so local families and things, they see us and will talk to us, and they become a real part of where we live. So we've evolved so much over the last couple of years, and one of the things that we've expanded into is that we've got our Reach Centre, which is part of the school now. So we have an additional building that the governors and I wanted to develop into a community space. So again, making the school a sort of the heart of the community and that hub for families to come together. And we had that, and even more so after COVID, we really realised how imperative it was to bring families together. A lot of families were isolated, and a lot of families were very, very vulnerable, especially in our area. So the Reach Centre, not only do we have a community space that we offer parenting classes, Grace Church do mother and toddler groups over there. We have United to Change and Urban Vertical and a couple of other community groups that hire it out. But one of our biggest assets now is that not only have we got Flying Start on site as well, so we've got 2-year-olds here too, but we've also got our Grangetown Kitchen Garden. And within that, we have our Big Box Boys, which is a community pay-as-you-feel shop. And we've also got our community allotment. So over the last couple of years, we've got that really, really well established, and we have a fantastic group of volunteers who are either parents of ours or ex-parents or just people who live in the area and were looking to be a part of something. Those volunteers now help us maintain our community allotment and our polycrub. And they also offer a community cafe once a week and our marketplace. So every Wednesday, we are open to the public to come on site, and they can have a free cup of tea and coffee and a hot bowl of soup or a bread roll. Children and some of our volunteers will cook and bake biscuits and cupcakes and things like that, so they can have that as well. And we offer the marketplace. We have a subscription with FareShare, and we also have some links with the local supermarkets. But a lot of the produce that the children are growing, so again, that authentic food literacy, they know how their food it comes to their plate. So it's that seed to plate opportunity. A lot of the food that's harvested here gets sold in our marketplace as well. So members of the public can come and get 15 items for £5. And they can range from pulses, grains, milk, cereal, to fruit and vegetables, even sort of domestic products, cleaning, and toiletry needs as well. So that's become a real asset. And the fact that it's run by the community for the community is just a fantastic asset. And again, the things that are sold in the marketplace and things that are offered in the community cafe are representative of the community that we serve.